Welcome to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the Dr. T hotter than your morning coffee.
And give you the insider scoop in the wild world of credentialing, provider drama, and everything they don't teach you in med school.
I'm Shannen, and she's Nyleen, two credentialing pros with front row seats to all the chaos.
From fraud scandals to burnout breakdowns and why your favorite surgeon might actually be banned from 5 hospitals.
We got the gossip and the practical advice to keep you out of trouble and ahead of the game.
So grab your coffee, your compliance checklist, and maybe a lawyer, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the tea that no one else dares to. I'm your host, Shannen Reyes-Aguayo, and your go-to girl for real talk in healthcare credentialing. And joining me, as always, is the beautiful, sexy queen of all the receipts, Nyleen Flores.
Hey everyone. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's heavy, it's wild, but as usual, very necessary. We're going to talk about hospitals that were surveyed and then they failed. And these aren't small misses. We're talking patient deaths, state interventions, and then one hospital that's just barely hanging on to accreditation.
I know, sending in appeal letters. Please don't take it away, right? This hospital just missed the mark. They lit the whole scoring sheet on fire. We are talking hospitals, and I am ready. Because it's not just providers that are the problem. How hospitals now are being held liability for negligent things. This really does talk about what's happening, because the accreditation matters, right, Nyleen?
Yes, so let's get into it, Shannen. There is just a little disclaimer on this one, even though we're going to be talking about doctors, we're going to be talking about facilities.
I know. I see you added the disclaimer. I was like, really? Oh, my goodness. Sure. We have never worked for or been involved directly in any of these cases we are mentioning today.
That is correct. So we're not talking about our past employers. We're not violating any work contracts.
Y'all want to hear an episode about our past employers? We could do that, though. Let us know in the comments, okay? And if you want to, we'll do it.
This episode of Credentialing Chronicles is sponsored by Advanced Quality Compliance, your white glove credentialing crew. We get it. One person doing the work of 5, audit season looming, files all over the place. AQC steps in with expert hands and calm minds, digitizing your chaos, handling the details, and keeping you audit ready 24/7. Think less stress, more success with a touch of luxury. No stress, no mess, just AQC white glove service. Visit aqccvo.com to get started.
All right, well, we're going to take this recent, 2025 Joint Commission. We're going to talk about Maryland. We haven't picked on them yet. 2025 Joint Commission issued a preliminary denial of accreditation. This is rare. This is you really messed up rare.
Yeah, really rare. And, they got the Joint Commission equivalent of a pink slip, Nyleen, for our patients out there that are listening, because somebody has said you have to listen to Credentialing Chronicles if you want to protect yourself as a patient, right? Can you explain a little bit about what the Joint Commission is and what it means and who they are?
Sure. So the Joint Commission is the healthcare version of an inspector or a quality control agency, but for hospitals and healthcare organizations. Think of it like this. If a restaurant needs the health department inspection to stay open and prove that it's safe to serve food, then a hospital needs the Joint Commission to prove it's safe to treat patients. So they're a not-for-profit organization that visits hospitals, nursing homes, surgery centers, and other healthcare facilities to make sure that they're following the rules. Are the doctors qualified? Is patient care safe and ethical? Are the medications stored and handled properly? Are the emergency protocols in place and working? So when a facility goes ahead and passes that inspection, then they get what's called accredited. So it's a gold star that says, we meet national safety and quality standards. It's okay to eat here. Well, it's okay to get treated here.
When we were working when I was always working in corporate America, we'd always say it was like the mafia of all the accreditation standards, because they have that gold standard. But really quick, there is also ACHC. And they are a newer one, a newer accreditation agency that is coming, but they are really making great strides. They are really partnering with a lot of agencies, and they also do provide accreditation services.
Yes, there's DNV, then there's AAAHC for surgery centers, there's Quad A, there's a lot of agencies out there that do these sorts of accreditors.
So just in case you hear us talking about it, exactly. So the Joint Commission, the short of it, they equal what the watchdog that holds hospitals accountable for safety, ethical, and high quality care. And if they show up and things are not like they're supposed to be doing, I mean, there's literally alarm calls when Joint Commission comes on board, comes into the hospital. The Joint Commission's in the box, Joint Commission, and everybody knows about it because it means you stand a little straighter and you do things a little better. But they put a hospital on warning, or they can pull your accreditation entirely. And when that happens, it's not just bad PR. It could mean lawsuits, loss of funding, or even closure to the facility. I mean, so let's take it back. You said the first stop was in Jessup, Maryland, April 2025. The Joint Commission shows up at this hospital center, Maryland's only maximum security psychiatric hospital. So FYI, now we're dealing with mental health people. 4 days of inspection. And on the final day, preliminary denial of accreditation. And not just a needs improvement, not a conditional. They said, you might not even be in the club anymore, boo. So the Joint Commission basically hit them with the medical version of an eviction notice, Nyleen.
Yes, girl. And just to be clear, this isn't just like a routine slap on the wrist. Preliminary denial is one step short of full-on revocation. So that means that the hospital only had 10 days to appeal. Girl, those are some straight 24-hour days. 30 days to plead its case. But this wasn't a surprise to the people that were watching closely.
Yeah, so 10 days of appeal, you know what that means? So they give you your letter and you literally only have 10 days to write your letter, which has to be pristine, and get it back to them and convince them that you do not need to be, taken away, revocation, right, Nyleen?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a full meltdown, right? It's just like, why is this place on fire? Why is this happening? And I mean, did you get any more information?
Well, it's a 289-bed forensic psychiatric facility.
Oh my God, what does that even mean?
Well, because it's where they house people that are charged with violent felonies, like murder, assault, like plead of insanity,
Okay, so I plead insanity.
These are the people that pled insanity, but were actually crazy. So they were actually found incompetent to stand trial or not criminally responsible for doing really bad stuff. So they're supposed to be getting treatment, not punishment.
Oh my God. So this is where they go. So locked down and they're vulnerable. And that's just a high risk population in the patient population that we're talking about. I mean, you need top tier staff. You need constant oversight. You need tight operations, LPCs, you need all the good stuff.
Yes, but the facility had been unraveling for years. Back in 2023, the Washington Post actually ran an article and exposed just how bad it had gotten, that a patient had gotten raped by their roommate. Another patient ended up dying under suspicious circumstances. Girl, there were brawls, fights, injuries, mass staff exodus, and then zero accountability.
And you're saying this is a state-ran facility or a government-ran facility? So my tax dollars is paying for this to happen in the chaos of the chaos?
Yes, ma'am. State-run, state-funded, and state-neglected. Staff were stretched beyond their capacity. Leadership was a constant revolving door. So we're going to bring this back towards the end of the episode, why this is such a big deal. There were fired CEOs, interim CEOs, new CEOs every few months. Yes. So morale was in the basement, and oversight, let's just say the lights were on, but nobody was home kind of thing.
So you're saying when the Joint Commission showed up in April, this wasn't a routine visit. This was more like walking into a haunted house, realizing the ghosts are real, and then they have a paper trail to then report on the ghost, correct?
Girl, that's not even the scary part. The ghosts weren't even the scary part. No one outside the facility even knew what the Joint Commission had found before. So their preliminary denial was not announced publicly by the state. The only reason anyone found out about it was because the Washington Post reporter started asking questions.
It's always good when the people start asking questions, right? So wait. What about the disability rights group, the people charged with protecting patients' welfare? They didn't know? The lawmakers didn't know? Nobody?
Nope. So Disability Rights of Maryland found out the same way we did from the press.
What?
Yes. Well, the senator was a physician and a longtime watchdog, and he also heard it from the press. And he said, "We're left to speculate." I'm not even sure what that means, but okay.
What? So that means he ain't believing it. That's what he means. I mean, he's not wrong. This hospital has been a walking red flag for years. And the audit, the one commissioned last year, still unreleased. The state said it's under legal review. That's a lawyer kind of saying what we don't want y'all to see it. I mean, that's what it had like to me, right?
Mm-mm. Meanwhile, the hospital staff actually had a union representing it, which is like, that's crazy, because if you have a union, they're supposed to be like inspecting all of this stuff and like listening to employee complaints. Yeah. So the union, they ended up not mincing their words. They flat out blamed failed leadership at both hospital and agency levels. And apparently they've been screaming for safer staffing standards and protections for years. But nobody was ever listening, and can't keep track of it if the leadership is always changing, because it's always just going to fall on deaf ears.
Now Susie's on the patient floor, Susie from the patient floor, and she's screaming, right, for safer staffing and protection of, and what? Susie was fired because she was loud, because she said this isn't safe, this doesn't feel right. And now the Joint Commission finally shows up and confirms what Susie Staffer was saying. Susie Staffer, if you are out there, I hear you, baby. Call the Joint Commission, find out who they're accredited with. They all have a whistleblower hotline now, baby. Call the whistleblower hotline. Leave your contact form. Leave a paper trail. Send an email if there's an email address. Do not stop, because you always find it's that one person that is screaming that helps so many patients out there, because this is negligence with a name badge. You can't hide behind bureaucracy when people are freaking dying.
Yes. And you know what kills me is that, guess what? I can't.
I don't even want to know. I'm so scared. I just want to walk away. Bye.
It's still accredited. It's still technically accredited. Yes, because it's pending a corrective action. So now I guess the new CEO that just started this year says they're cooperating, they're making the necessary changes, but the hospital is just running on fumes, morally, operationally, ethically. Like, that is some serious stuff. Like, even to now, they're just trying to say, okay, we're going to keep you accredited until you make the changes. So I can't wait to see what the heck is going on.
So they hired a new CEO, which we already had known that leadership changes. You already had said that in your investigation. And she walks into a burning building with a garden hose and a good intention. Into a culture, that is not easy to change. A culture that has gone through all this. The house is fine. I'm going to tell you, girl, I'm rooting for you. Okay, are you rooting for her? We have to. But how do you fix a culture that's broken, especially when the receipts are there to prove decades long of negligence? Like, girl, I am rooting for you.
I know. It's going to take way more than like memos, right?
Yeah, she needs to be on the floor.
Full transparency, staff rebuilding, staff replacing, legal accountability, and a complete policy overhaul. And that's if the state actually lets the public see the truth. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and girl, I keep thinking about those patients. I mean, some of whom may never leave the hospital. They're not numbers, they're not cases, they're people. And they are handed over to a system that forgot how to care for them, or, again, just made them about the money. Like, it's one body equals this much money.
Right. And then what happens is, this facility was once a model institution, So it goes from a model institution to today being a case study for leadership failure, systemic neglect, and performance oversight, to really bring a facility that's necessary to the edge of collapse.
I mean, alone they're in this hot mess, and are we hopping on a scandal train? Is this the only case that you have, or are we hopping on the scandal train for another one?
Well, buckle up. I can't just leave it to just one.
I know. You never just have one. And that one be so crazy that I don't know how we're going to talk about somebody else.
So we're flying south, going to Florida to a hospital that lost everything over one of the most disturbing credentialing breakdowns we've seen.
Okay, well, give me a chance. Let me pack my bags. Now we're heading south. You were going to Florida, like you said. Can we make a pit stop at Busch Gardens, Daytona Beach?
Well, maybe because, girl, this is out in Tampa. So let's talk about this hospital. Okay, let me just say, this was not your typical hospital ding. This was a full-on meltdown. Okay, the Joint Commission, and we talk about another Joint Commission case, didn't just slap them on the wrist, girl. They yanked their entire accreditation 10 days after a surprise inspection. Because Joint Commission does that.
This case. I'm glad you found this case where somebody didn't just pending, where it's actually been yanked. Okay, tell me.
So this is really interesting because Joint Commission does do sometimes surprise visits. Right? In the middle of maybe your accreditation cycle. Is not just once every 3 years. It could be in the middle of that time.
So not the Sunshine State throwing shade on itself, right? Florida, why are you always the scene of the crime, you chaotic little peninsula? We love you, but y'all stay booked and messy, boo, with all the hospitals and stuff down there. All the tea for Florida.
I know, poor Florida. Okay, so this wasn't just a minor technicality. Not just like a missing checklist or like an expired ACLS card. We're talking like life-altering fatal errors. So first, let's talk about a diabetic man getting the wrong leg amputated.
The wrong leg? Are you kidding me?
No. In 95, they were supposed to amputate his left foot, and then they took the right one. That was actually okay. Yeah, big mistake.
You cannot come back from that. I mean, that can't oops your way out of that kind of mistake. I mean, now he can't walk and he still has the bad leg, right? And the malpractice, that's a malpractice with a capital M. Who was checking? I mean, remember we talked about our checks when we did the surgery center? Who was confirming? That's the basic surgical protocol that you taught me about.
Yeah, but okay, so like one wrong site, one organ, one side. Okay, it's not going to shut down your hospital, girl. But then 2 weeks later, another patient was accidentally removed from a ventilator. That's just not cutting you on the wrong side. There's you're supposed to be on life support. You weren't on life support. I don't know. Long story short is they took him off the ventilator. He died because the technician had confused him with somebody else.
Ooh, that's 2 preventable tragedies in 2 weeks, and leadership just kept the doors open like it was business as usual. I mean, the poor technician probably had a rough night the night before or something. But again, if you have a rough night the night before, you can't take that into the hospital.
Girl, it gets worse. No. Other errors started coming out during an investigation. There was an arthroscopic surgery on the wrong knee, a partial tubal ligation performed without the patient's consent. That is sterilization performed without the patient's consent. It was like running a list of how to not run a hospital, what to check during a regular recredentialing cycle.
How to not lose a hospital in 10 days.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can we go back to the sterilization part, though? I mean, that's not funny. That's not a clinical error. That's a bodily violation. Again, it's happening to women everywhere. It's literally, we cannot research a case, you all, without finding some of this stuff where they're literally just mutating women. You are permanently altering someone's reproductive future without consent forever. And that's not just unethical. It's literally criminal.
And what, these aren't just isolated one-offs. The Joint Commission found actual systemic failures, breakdowns in patient safety, informed consent, surgical protocols, and then obviously leadership oversight over these processes, which is why they did what they rarely do.
I see, yeah.
Is they pulled the accreditation. It was that egregious.
I mean, that's the nuclear option. Hospitals live and die by the Joint Commission Gold Seal. And that doesn't even sound like Gold Seal type of business, you know? And without it, say goodbye to Medicare and Medicaid. I mean, and that's what needed to be taken away from this hospital. Like, sometimes you have to make a drastic discipline for people to understand, you know, and learn a lesson.
Yes, because accreditation can be tied to your payer contracts. If you lose accreditation, they're going to pull the contract. So that means that they just lost $52 million. The hospital lost $52 million in federal reimbursements. That's like a third. I mean, I'm surprised it's not more than that because it's Florida, of their entire patient revenue.
Yeah. And let's not forget about elective surgeries that were shut down too. The state's agency for healthcare administration put a freeze on all non-emergency surgeries through this. So that's your profit engine, honey. Your ORs, your pre-scheduled procedures, your bread, your butter, it's gone. And that's exactly what should have happened to them.
Right. So they were bleeding money, reputation, staff. Surgeons were walking out. Of course, doctors from that hospital literally called another hospital to hurry up and get privileges there the same day the news broke. Like, they were like, resign, and I want to sign up to the other hospital down the street to get privileges. Privileging nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, you know it's bad when other hospitals are holding emergency meetings to prepare for your fallout. I mean, it's not a bump in the road. That's truly a controlled demolition.
And get this, then the hospital tried to play the victim. So the chair of the board said, and I quote, all right, he said, all hospitals have similar patient incidents. We're being unfairly singled out.
Until his mother's foot gets cut off, right? And then it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Let them cut his mama's foot off. So everyone out here is amputating the wrong limb, pulling the plug on the wrong patients. Okay, sure. Gaslight, gatekeeping, gross negligence. But again, like I said, let them cut his mama's wrong foot off. And then there's going to be a huge problem.
Right. The state wasn't having it either. So thankfully, the actual state of Florida, the head of ACA, said he didn't see a comprehensive, detailed remedial plan. So basically means you're winging it. You can't wing it with people's lives. So when you get in trouble, normally, when you get audited, when you go through a Joint Commission survey, if they have a finding, you can either fix it at that moment and say, no, maybe, we didn't have the policy here. We don't. Joint Commission wants to help you. The thing is when you grossly ignore the errors and don't say, I put an action plan in place. This is my performance improvement plan. These are the policies I've set in place. If you do that, Joint Commission isn't going to do that. But obviously, you healthcare leaders didn't think it was a big deal. You could just, it doesn't mean anything. Well, guess what? It actually does. And shame on you.
Yeah, and Joint Commission and them, it's called, the CAP, the Corrective Action Plan. There's ways that you have to write it out. There's ways that you have to prove what you're going to do. You have to have supporting documentation. You have to have some, documentation of staff training. You can't just pull it off of ChatGTP, You actually have to show evidence of you doing these things. And so, but instead of that solution, their solution is a 5-minute safety training. Literally 5 minutes. That's what they said. That's how long it takes to microwave a bag of popcorn, not truly rebuild a clinical culture.
Yeah. So hospital leadership was just like scrambling. Surgeons had to attend some little crash course or something, but otherwise they were going to lose their privileges. But at that point, the state regulator was like, no. Too little, too late, not comprehensive enough.
And I mean, we really have to be clear, Nyleen, this wasn't just about medical errors. It's not just about the foot, being cut off wrongly. This was about failure to own the consequences. So it's the denial, the delay, the deflection. You know what I'm saying? This hospital acted like a real problem was the Joint Commission having the audacity to show up and look for things that could be wrong. That was their upsetness about this.
Which, by the way, the reason they even showed up, was because they saw headlines.
Yeah, so nobody blow the whistle.
Right. It wasn't even an employee that said something. It wasn't the hospital. It wasn't a concerned doctor. It was the press. They showed headlines. So March 31st, the Joint Commission shows up, April 3rd, and by April 13th, revoke their accreditation. It was that fast. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, that's truly fast. I mean, fast and final, like you said, and you know what? Let me tell you, it should have been. Because this wasn't just about policy violations. People literally are dying and people are permanently being harmed. And it wasn't a freak accident. It seemed as if it was a pattern. And again, when we're talking about something that happens as an accident, but if you're denying, you're delaying, and you're deflecting, you're never going to fix that problem. The accident's going to keep happening, which is what Joint Commission said.
Exactly. So let's zoom out a little bit. This was one of only about 1% of hospitals to lose accreditation this year. That's how serious it was.
Yeah, I mean, I read an article one time that said, when hospitals and organizations like AQC, even when we spend all this money on our accreditation.
Oh, this is not cheap either, right?
It's not cheap. It's not cheap. What is the incentive for the accreditation to come back and take away our accreditation? Because then they don't have that money. So, which is a true article, what it's talking about. But on the other hand, thank God that we are seeing that they do come in, they do close down, they do take away the accreditation. And it's not truly about all the money with the Joint Commission. So what happened after? Did they just close the doors? Did they tell me what happened, Nyleen?
Well, not quite. So the hospital did end up appealing. Accreditation technically stayed in place during the appeal process, which can take months, but the reputational damage was immediate, like managed care contracts, Cigna's watching, Humana's watching, like they're all one step from pulling out. So it's like...
everybody's getting it. It's a trickle, yeah.
Yeah, temperate waters.
The ripple effect of it all. Because no one sure wants to send patients on the Titanic to get their, total hip replaced, right? I mean, if they know it's not going to work out, it makes exactly great sense,
Yeah, so eventually the hospital did recover. And then they merged into a larger healthcare system that has more protocols, more processes, better credentialing. But this case left a mark. It became a national example. Even the AMA, which is the American Medical Association, cited it as a warning of what happens when hospitals really don't take accountability seriously. When there's negligent processes in place.
Exactly. And, that's what gets me is how many of these breakdowns are always preventable that we see, that we talk about. And that's the importance of Credentialing Chronicles, because even though we talk about all of these different things, you all, it's all preventable, which is the craziest thing. If someone had just listened, if there had just been a little bit more oversight, if consent forms were double checked, if a staff wasn't rushed, or, if leadership had just even acted, urgent for the first time and cared a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, instead, what they did? They waited. They waited until the media storm, the lawsuits, the loss of accreditation, same old cycle. Ignore the cracks, fill them in with some super glue, and then cry when the walls cave in. And I can tell you, when we're talking about red flags, a constant changeover of C-suite management is definitely one. I told you I was going to bring this back. And we know that sometimes it's necessary to change the C-suite, but if it's changing every week, or your leadership or management isn't staying on board, and you've got this constant changeover of people, it's a problem. It's a huge red flag for a facility.
Huge, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, let's pause for a second, because that's, there's something that we've seen in every single one of these failures, One big flag that keeps getting ignored is the C-suite's revolving door. Because we do see that a lot when we're talking about these.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So we talk about medical staff turnover a lot, but what we don't talk enough about is how the executive turnover can quietly really destabilize a hospital system, an office, a practice. And I'm talking about when you've had 5 CEOs in 4 years, or, 20 CMOs or 10 CMOs in the last 14 months, or everything is an interim CMO, interim COO. It's a problem.
Yeah, it's giving leadership musical chairs to me, right? And when the music goes off, whatever chair you sit in, is that you? And while they're playing, again, I just always am going to bring it back to the patient safety is falling through the cracks. Because let's be real, when no one's around long enough to see their plans go through or to see the results of a plan that wasn't executed, wonderfully, the policy stayed half baked and the problems get hidden and the patients suffer.
Right. So if you go back to that psych hospital at the beginning, the leadership turn was wild. The facility had multiple CEOs over just a few years, right? Some were fired, some were interim, some just burned out. And then what did it lead to? Nothing. No consistency, no sustained improvement. It was absolute chaos. Nobody knew what the last survey did. It was just craziness all the time.
Yeah, and it shows like that the nurses, the staff that are actually on the floor, they don't trust administration, oversight committees fall apart and, even internal audits went unfinished. And it was like every new leader hit a new reset. This is our plan. And then the plan never falls through, and that creates, an environment for stuff like this to happen.
Right. So when you see the hospital in Florida, then it's the same pattern. After the wrong leg amputated or a wrongful death on the ventilator, reporters found that quality improvement officers were regularly replaced and senior medical leadership team changed, 3 times in 2 years. So it's constant.
And that senior medical leadership person was Susie. Calling it out, saying, hey, y'all, this don't look right. We shouldn't be doing it like this. And then Susie was ran out, And that's the thing. What you see is environments that are bad, that, are having problems, systematic problems like this. They run out the good people and they keep the people that play along. And so sometimes if you're run out, don't think it's because of you. Everything ain't about you. Maybe they're running you out because you're an ethical person. So again,
I've seen it.
Trust your gut. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. Don't say, oh, they done fire me. I'm not good enough to work there. No, trust your gut. Okay. It's not strategy. It's whiplash. It happens so fast. And every time a new person walks in with a new vision, a new what's going to happen, they delay the corrective action plan. And they stall the peer review, and you really stall what's a way to fix it. And you lose all of your institutional memory of what happened. And now you're just like trying to pick up the pieces and it's all falling through your hands. And guess what? You're like, this is wrong. Something's wrong. And then you become the person that is the target because all the other people have left. There's no other targets and you have to be careful.
Yeah. So leadership turnover is more than just HR drama. Right? It's a clinical risk factor here because when no one owns the data, then no one owns the outcome. And the dangerous stuff, it just slips through the cracks.
Yeah. And here's the real tea, high C-suite turnover should be a regulatory trigger. Just like an infection breakout, just like, a sentinel event that happens, if a hospital is on its third CEO in 18 months, someone needs to ask why and, do root cause analysis and figure out what's going on to make that turnover keep happening.
Well, and let's add this. It affects credentialing directly back to our MSPs. New executives might change bylaws, reorganize departments, override MEC, medical executive committee decisions, often without fully understanding the culture or the compliance history. I lived through a complete C-suite turnover, and it was horrible. I was going home crying every night.
Just because you didn't know where you stood.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do they always say? Hurry up, get this doctor in. I need him now. It's because this doctor's not on staff that we're losing money. What? Like what?
Right.
So you've got unchecked privileges, you lose oversight, and there's no real follow through. And because that interim, COO, he or she's not about to die on that hill, she's going to protect themselves. He's going to protect themselves. She's just trying to make it to her next gig. And so you have to realize that at the end of the day, right, it's all about self-preservation. It's not about the hospital's not going to die with this man or woman, CEO. It is about self-preservation.
Absolutely. So the bottom line, really, stability and leadership isn't just about good management. It's about patient safety, compliance continuity, and operational accountability. If you're watching from the outside, whether you're a patient, a staffer, a policymaker, high turnover at the top should make you very nervous.
Very nervous. No, very nervous. And because no one stands long enough to fix the roof, everyone's living under a very leaky roof. And sooner or later, it's going to break, you guys.
Yeah. So hospitals are not startups, right? You can't pivot every quarter and expect lives not to be lost in the shuffle. It's time that we start treating C-suite turn like what it is, a flashing red light that deserves immediate investigation.
Yeah, and I know we have a lot of board members that listen to our podcast. And so, I guess this is a little PSA for board members, right? Ask better questions. Look beyond financial performance, please. Ask about clinical follow through. Ask who owns the risk. And if you don't know the names of your hospital's past 5 CEOs, that is a huge problem that you need to correct.
Amen, Shannen. Amen.
So what brings us back to the point of today's episode, really, let's just reel it back in, right? Accreditation is not a formality. It's not a gold star for your website, guys. It's a signal that a hospital is meeting minimum, because they can always do better, minimum safety standards. And if you lose that, you're not just failing patients, you're proving you were never safe in the first place. And that is very important when we're talking about hospitals in our communities. PSA for patients. So let's start with the patients because you are the ones these systems are supposed to be protecting. Make sure, again, if you are listening, forward this to 5 patients and tell them to listen to it because I understand that we are all about medical staff professionals and we are out here telling you all the tea. But truly, if patients aren't informed of how to do these things, how to check for themselves, then we're just out here talking, okay? Ask questions always. If something feels off, whether it's a rush consent form, an unclear procedure, or a provider that you have never met, you speak up. You ask, who's performing my procedures? What are my alternatives? And can I get this in writing? And if you're not getting answers, bring someone with you. Call them on the phone, put them on speaker, okay? File a complaint. You are not being difficult. You are being alive, and that's the goal.
Yeah, hospitals should earn your trust and not demand it. All right, let's get to our MSPs. MSPs, now to my people in the trenches. You're the firewall. You're the quiet force standing between the patients and preventable harm. If no one's told you lately, you matter. Your credentialing process matters. Your pushback on incomplete applications, guess what? That matters. Every time you raise a red flag, ask for verification, delay a rush privileging request, you're doing sacred work.
And listen, like I just told Nyleen, do not look into my eyes. Do not let leadership pressure you to rush a file, okay? Do not allow them to fast track people because they know Bob. They might forget that signatures save lives. And you don't forget that no matter what. You remember, hey, I need this amount of days. You're like a chef. I need 3 minutes until the meat is done, okay? I need 5 days to make sure that this is a good person. And I need to get the stuff back.
Yeah, keep the receipts, stand your ground, CYA. You're not just doing admin work. You're building the integrity of your facility, one provider at a time. So let's talk about our doctors.
Yes, doctors, y'all are brilliant, life-saving superheroes, often overworked. But let me say this with love. Your license is not your passport to unchecked practice.
Yeah, you still need privileges. You still need supervision when appropriate. You are still accountable to policies and peer review and the teams that protect your patients. And you still need to be a team player with your other doctors.
And if something's broken in your hospital, say something. Don't wait until there's, a sentinel event to suddenly remember that you have ethics. And please don't hand wave away safety protocols like they're optional because they are never optional.
Yes, great clinicians are made even better by humility and system awareness. You're part of the safety net. So just act like it.
And if your hospital, surgery center, or a psych facility, do not wait until the Joint Commission comes knocking. Do not wait. You don't want them to be waiting because when they do, it's already too late. It should be a scheduled visit, not a surprise.
Yes. And if you're listening and wondering how to protect your team and your patients, get with the professionals, not volunteers, not just your cousin who used to do HR. Like, reach out. This is why we have emails. Nyleen and Shannen, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. Like, look us up, send us a message. It's okay. We have connections, not just personally, but we have connections to many different institutions that can help any facility streamline process, do credentialing appropriately, do all of these things. So reach out to your professionals, go to the organization, go to NAMS, go to the AAPC, look at organizations.
Instead of giving it to your overworked nurse manager who already wears 8 hats, if you need help, you follow organization like Nyleen's or I's, just like she said. All right, PSAs are delivered. Let's land this episode. What do you think, Nyleen?
We see you, we thank you, and we hope you walk into your next meeting with a little more fire and a lot more clarity. That's it for today. But we have to say subscribe, leave us a review, message us, and tell us all of your healthcare horror stories. We want to be able to deliver and keep you intrigued. Thank you so much.
We'll keep sipping the tea and sharing it loud. Until next time, stay audit ready, my friends. Whoo, that was a lot of tea. Who knew doctors had more drama than reality TV?
And if you think that was wild, just wait till next week. We've got more stories, more scandals, and more credentialing chaos coming your way.
Hit that follow button and don't forget, just because they have an MD doesn't mean they have a clean record.
See you next time on Credentialing Chronicles. Stay credentialed, not canceled.